Ethan hears a sound coming from around the corner, a dull thud to the stomach, a brief sob, someone laughing. He knows that sound better than any school bell. 6 years of basement fights on the south side have taught him to distinguish a blow to the body from a blow against a wall 20 meters away. And now he turns the corner on his first day in a foreign country. 3 older kids have pinned a first grader against the wall. Blood is gushing from the boy's nose. He's clutching his stomach with both hands. One of the 3 spots Ethan had growls in Korean, quickly, sharply. Ethan doesn't understand the words. He understands the tone in any language. Get lost. Ethan looks at the freshman, then at the 3 of them, then back at the kid. He turns around. He walks away. Not because he chickened out, but because his mother is in the oncology ward at Seoul National University Hospital, waiting for her second biopsy. He promised her he wouldn't get involved. He really did promise.
Ethan walks into the school and feels someone's gaze on his back. He turns around. A girl with long black hair is standing by the second-floor window, looking at him as if she can read his mind. A second later, she disappears. Let's rewind. Ethan's name is Park E-han. His mother sewed his uniform for him at night after her shift at the hospital, and the left sleeve ended up shorter than the right. In his pocket is a thermos of barley tea from his grandmother and a crumpled piece of paper with a schedule in Korean. He can't read half the characters. There are 32 people in the class, and everyone is staring at the new kid. The teacher introduces him as Park E-hwan from Chicago. Someone giggles. Someone whispers a word he's already heard twice this morning. Honghyul. Half-breed. He doesn't react. Back on the south side, they called him worse. The teacher asks him to say a few words about himself. Ethan stands up and says in broken Korean that his mother is Korean. He's lying on purpose. His mother is American, but his grandmother taught him that a half-breed with a Korean mother is held in slightly higher regard here. He sits down. During third period, a guy with a buzz cut approaches the desk. 2 others follow him. You're sitting in Min Hyuk's spot. Ethan looks at the desk. It's empty. No name, no nameplate, nothing. He says he'll move when Min Hyuk asks. The guy leans in. He reeks of energy drinks and cigarettes. He mutters that the Yankee doesn't understand how things work here. Ethan replies that he definitely doesn't understand and will stay there until someone explains it to him. 3 seconds of silence. The guy turns around and walks away. The other 2 follow him. And the whole class saw it. Everyone. No one intervened. No one looked away. They're used to it. After class, Ethan walks through the school. Taeyong is a colossus with 5 wings. East, west, north, south, central. Each has its own stairwells and its own rules. The west wing is quieter than anywhere else. Students quicken their pace. No one lingers by the lockers. No one speaks loudly. It's not discipline. It's fear. Ethan recognizes that smell. In Southside, on some streets, people walked exactly like this, quickly and silently. His phone vibrates. A message from his mother. Biopsy tomorrow. Don't worry. Eat grandma's food. Love you. At home, grandma is cutting kimchi and doesn't ask how his day went. She looks at his hands. His knuckles are clean. She nods and sets a plate in front of him. In the evening, he video calls his mother. He says everything's fine. The uniform fits well. The teachers are polite. His classmates too. His mother stares at him for a long time. She's a nurse. She can tell when someone's lying. But she doesn't press him. She just tells him to go to bed early. Ethan hangs up and stares at the ceiling. There's a crack in it, shaped like a river. He thinks about how he never managed to pull that first grader away from the wall, and how he heard the name Min-hyuk 11 times today, but didn't see Min-hyuk himself even once. And how the girl by the window was looking at him not with curiosity, but with... The morning of the second day, Ethan arrives first. He walks through the West Wing on purpose. On the wall between floors, there are 3 parallel scratches at face level. A mark. In South Side, the gangs marked their territory too. A freshman is fidgeting by the restroom. He wants to go in, but is afraid. Ethan peeks inside. Empty. He nods. Go ahead. He stands at the sink himself and washes his hands. The door opens. 4 guys walk in. The same guy with the buzz cut and 3 others. Behind them, they drag another first year and shove him against the wall. One of them mumbles something about money, about the mirror, about using it. Ethan doesn't turn around. He hears every word even without understanding the language. The tone, the rhythm, the pause before the blow. The leader notices him. Hey, Yankee, get out while you're still in one piece. Ethan tears off a towel, wipes his hands slowly, folds it into a neat square, turns around, and he looks not at the boss, but at the guy on the left. The guy on the left has his right shoulder lower than his left. He'll strike first because he's the most jumpy one here. Ethan speaks in a mix of Korean and English. I won't touch you, but right now, you're going to give him the money. Apologize, leave. Otherwise, this guy on the left will strike first, and I'll respond. And I'll respond only to him. Nothing will happen to you. But tomorrow, the school will find out that your best fighter was taken down by a new kid in 3 seconds, and you just stood there watching. Silence. The boss laughs, nervously, briefly. The guy on the left snaps. His right hand goes up. Ethan takes half a step to the left. The punch misses. Ethan strikes once, to the liver, short and precise.
The guy folds in half and falls to his knees. He can't breathe. He'll catch his breath in a minute. He won't go to the hospital, but he'll remember. The boss silently pulls out some crumpled bills. He shoves them into the freshman's palm. The 4 of them walk out. One is being dragged by the arm. Ethan washes his hands again and leaves. By evening, the whole school knows about it. Park E-han, half Korean from Chicago, knocked out Min-hyuk with a single punch in the 3rd floor bathroom. Didn't throw the first punch, didn't film it on his phone. He didn't brag, he just left. In the school chat, the message gets 300 shares in 2 hours. Someone adds details that weren't there. Someone says there were 5 punches, someone says 10. No one cares about the truth. They care about one thing. Someone new has shown up. New guy in Terrion. And Min-hyuk doesn't know about it yet. By the 3rd day, every floor knows Ethan's name. Not his face, not his voice. Just his name and one phrase. The new kid from Chicago took down Min-hyuk's guy. There are already about 20 versions in the school chat. In one, he's a former MMA fighter. In another, he was kicked out from an American prison for fighting. In the 3rd, he's the son of a yakuza. Ethan doesn't read the chat because he doesn't have the school messenger app. He doesn't even know it exists. On the morning of the 3rd day, he's sitting in the cafeteria eating rice with kimchi, with chopsticks. The rice falls. He picks it up and keeps eating. At the next table, 3 girls are looking at him and whispering. One of them is the one with the long black hair he saw by the window on the first day. She isn't whispering, she's just looking, directly and calmly. Ethan notices her gaze and nods. She doesn't nod back, she just turns away and leaves. The other 2 get up after her. in unison, as if on command. Ethan thinks that everyone at this school has a team. He doesn't have a team, and he won't. He's here for a year.
Maybe 2, while his mother gets treatment. Then back to Chicago, home. After the second class, a girl from his class approaches him in the hallway. Beautiful, very long hair, perfect posture. Her uniform fits as if it were tailor-made. She speaks decent English. "You're Ethan, right? I'm Kim Ha-in from 2-1. I wanted to say hi." Ethan looks at her, then at his watch, then back at her. He says, "Do you need something? If not, I'm late." Ha-in blinks, opens her mouth, closes it. Ethan walks past her. He isn't being rude. He isn't playing games. He just responds exactly to what he heard. In Chicago, pretty girls approached guys for 2 reasons. First, they needed a favor. Second, someone had asked them to come over. Ethan doesn't know which category Hyun falls into, and he doesn't plan on finding out. Hyun stands in the hallway and watches him walk away. She has a strange look on her face. None of the 300 guys in his class would have answered her like that. Not a single one. She thought she'd test him. Instead, he tested her. By lunchtime on the 4th day, Ethan notices a pattern. In the West Wing, no one goes above the 2nd floor without a reason. Freshmen bypass the staircase between the 2nd and 3rd floors by taking the long corridor through the North Wing. It takes an extra 4 minutes. No one complains. The 3rd floor of the West Wing is Min-hyuk's territory. Ethan still hasn't seen him, but he's seen his traces. Scratches on the wall. A freshman with a bandaged wrist by the nurse's office. A kid from a parallel class who flinches every time the door opens. Min-hyuk isn't hiding. Min-hyuk just doesn't go to school every day. He comes when he wants to, and everyone knows when he's here because the hallway empties out. On the 5th day, Min-hyuk shows up. Ethan knows it from the looks on his classmates' faces. Someone types in the chat. Phones buzzed simultaneously at every desk. The teacher pretends not to notice. Ethan sits in his seat, in Min-hyuk's seat. 2nd period, math. The door opens. A guy walks in. Tall, skinny, not big, not muscular. His face is calm and blank. His eyes are like those of a person who hasn't cared about anything for a long time. An old scar on his cheekbone. Fresh scrapes on the knuckles of his right hand. He stands in the doorway and looks at the class. The class is silent. The teacher is silent. 31 people hold their breath. Min-hyuk looks at his desk. Ethan is sitting there. Their eyes meet. Min-hyuk isn't angry. He doesn't yell. He doesn't approach. He turns around and sits down at an empty desk in the front row, with his back to the blackboard, facing the class. He takes out his phone and starts playing a game. The teacher continues the lesson as if nothing had happened. But it did. Everyone saw it. Min-hyuk didn't take his seat. That doesn't mean he gave in. It means he remembered. Ethan knows the difference. In Chicago, Don Raul used to say that, if a man doesn't show up right away, it means he'll come at night. After school, Ethan goes to the Noryangjin night market. He got a job as a loader 3 days ago, unloading crates of fish from 3 to 7 in the morning, paid in cash. The foreman doesn't ask for ID. He doesn't ask his age. He asks only one thing. Can you lift a 40-kilo crate? Ethan can. He needs the money for his mother. His grandmother's insurance covers treatment, but not a private room. And his mother can't sleep in a 12-person ward where someone moans all night. Ethan works for 4 hours. Then he goes home. He sleeps for 2 hours. Then school. His grandmother notices that he's leaving at night. She doesn't say anything. In the morning, she puts a double portion of rice and 2 eggs instead of 1 in front of him. Ethan eats it all. On the 6th day after school, he hears a scream coming from the gym basement. Not just a scream that cuts off. Ethan stands at the basement door and listens. It's quiet behind the door, then a rustle, then a sob. Quiet and stifled. A woman's. He opens the door. A staircase leading down. Dim light. Downstairs, 2 older guys, a girl between them. Small, wearing glasses. One is holding her by the hand. The holds her by the hair. She isn't screaming. She has stopped screaming. Ethan walks down the steps, slowly. His sneakers squeak on the concrete. Both guys turn around. The first one lets go of the girl and says something sharp. Ethan isn't listening. He's reading them. The first one, right-handed, heavy, slow. He's hit people, but not often. He's used to the fact that a single glance is enough. The second one, skinny, nervous. His hands are shaking. Not a fighter. Follows the first guy's lead. Does what he's told. Ethan steps within arm's reach of the first guy. Says one word. Go. The first guy strikes. Right hook. Slow. Wide. Ethan dodges the blow. He hits the solar plexus. A short, straight punch. The first one doubles over. Ethan adds a blow to the ear with an open palm. The first one falls to his knees. The second one lets go of the girl's hair and runs toward the stairs. Ethan doesn't chase him. He never chases anyone. The girl sits on the floor, trembling. Her glasses are broken. A red mark from his fingers on her cheek. Ethan takes off his jacket and places it on her shoulders. He doesn't drape it over her. He sets it down beside her, so she can decide for herself. He sits on a step 2 meters away from her. He's silent. 5 minutes later, she picks up the jacket and puts it on. 10 minutes later, she stands up. Ethan gets up with her. They leave the basement. It's dark outside. He walks her to the bus stop. She doesn't say a word. She gets on the bus. The doors close. Ethan stands at the bus stop and looks at his hands. His knuckles are clean. He hit her with his palm, not with his fist. He knows why.
Because if he'd hit him with his fist, the first guy would have gone to the hospital with a fractured temporal bone, and Ethan would have gone to the police, and his mother would have found out, and his mother mustn't find out. He walks home. Grandma is sitting in the kitchen peeling garlic. She looks at his hands. His knuckles are clean, but his jacket is missing. Grandma doesn't ask where the jacket is. She speaks softly in Korean. Your father had hands just like that, and your grandfather. We Pakis only fight when we have no choice but to fight. But when we have to, we fight to the end. Ethan freezes in the doorway. This is the first time Grandma has spoken of his father. He wants to ask, he wants to know more, but Grandma has already stood up and gone to her room. The door to her room closed quietly. Ethan stands in the empty kitchen. On the table is a plate of kimchi jjigae. It's still warm. He sits down and sits down. He thinks about the girl from the basement.
About her silence. About how she didn't put on her jacket right away, but 5 minutes later. 5 minutes means she decided to trust him. 5 minutes to decide to trust a stranger. Ethan knows what that's worth. On the South Side, some people haven't trusted anyone their whole lives. His phone vibrates. A message from his mother. How's it going? One word and a question mark that Ethan doesn't see because his mother doesn't use punctuation in her messages either. He replies, Fine, eating grandma's food. He puts his phone down, closes his eyes. Tomorrow is the 7th day. A week. He's made it through a week without any serious consequences. So far. The girl from the basement is named Chang Meyer. Ethan learns her name on the 8th day. Not from her, from the first grader he pulled out of the bathroom. The boy's name is John Min Soo, and he approaches Ethan in the cafeteria with a tray in his hands. He speaks quickly and quietly. "That girl you pulled out of the basement?"
Ethan walks past. He stops. He turns around. She looks at him and holds out the jacket, folded neatly. Ethan takes it, nods. She nods back. He walks away. She follows him, 10 steps behind. Not close, not far. 10 steps. Ethan notices but doesn't turn around. She follows him to the bus stop, gets on the same bus. She gets off 3 stops early, doesn't say goodbye. The next day she's at the gate again, and the next, and the next. Always 10 steps behind. Ethan doesn't chase her away, doesn't call her closer. He just walks. She just follows him. 3 days later, he notices that in the cafeteria she sits 2 tables away from him. Not at his table, 2 tables away. She's drawing something in her math notebook. Little figures in the margins. Little people. One big one, one small one. Ethan sees her out of the corner of his eye but doesn't look directly at her. He doesn't want to scare her off. On the 10th day of school, So Yuna approaches him. That very one. Long black hair, a direct gaze. 2 girls are behind her. Yuna speaks briefly. "You're Ethan. I'm So Yuna. I need to talk. Not here. On the roof." Ethan looks at her, then at the 2 girls behind her. Both are standing, so they block the approaches on the left and right. It's no accident. It's deliberate. These girls know how to take up space. Ethan says, "Okay." They go up to the roof. The wind, a view of Seoul. Far below, the schoolyard. Yuna stands by the railing and speaks without preamble. "I know what you did in the basement. I know what you did in the bathroom. And I know that Min Hyuk is preparing a response." Ethan is silent. Yuna continues. "I have 23 girls on my team. We're holding the East Wing. For the past year, the pyramid has been encroaching on us too. We're holding our ground for now. But I can't stop the guys from the basement on my own." Ethan says, "You want me to do something?" Yuna shakes her head. "No. I want you to know that you're not alone. And that when Min Hyuk comes for you, you'll have somewhere to retreat to." Ethan looks at her for a long time. There's no plea in her eyes, no weakness, just calculation. And something else, something like weariness. He says, "I'm not going to retreat anywhere." Yuna tilts her head slightly. She says, "I thought so. That's why I came." She turns and walks away. 2 girls follow her. Ethan stands alone on the roof. He looks at the city. He thinks. 23 girls, the East Wing, a team with discipline and structure. This isn't a school friend. This is an organization. He doesn't know yet that Yuna's father is a police officer in the juvenile division. He doesn't know that Yuna's mother died 4 years ago. He doesn't know that Yuna has been raising her younger sister Dahi since she was 13, and that Dahi is 16 and attends the same school in class 1-6 and laughs the loudest in the hallway because that's her way of not thinking about the fact that her mom is gone. He'll find out all this later. Right now, he knows only one thing. Yuna didn't offer an alliance. She offered a rear guard. And in a fight, a rear guard is the most valuable thing there is. In the evening, Ethan is at the market. He's hauling crates of tuna. His hands are wet and cold. Fish scales get stuck under his fingernails. The foreman yells,
Faster! Ethan picks up the pace. A man in his 40s is working nearby. Silent. Lean. His hands are scarred from the filleting knife. During the break, the man gives Ethan a hot coffee from the vending machine and says, "You're a student. I can tell by your hands. They're still soft." Ethan drinks the coffee and doesn't answer. The man says, "I started in school too. I loaded boxes too. 20 years have gone by. I'm still loading boxes." Ethan finishes his coffee. He says, "Thanks for the coffee." He goes back to the boxes. The man watches him go and shakes his head. At 4 in the morning, Ethan heads home. The bus is empty.
He falls asleep and misses his stop. He wakes up in 2. He walks back. Seoul at 4 in the morning is a different city. Quiet. Empty. The streetlights hum. A dog barks somewhere. Ethan walks down the narrow street of Taryongdong and thinks about Min Hyuk. About the fact that Min Hyuk hasn't reached out to him yet. He hasn't sent anyone. He hasn't messaged him. Nothing. Silence. And this silence is worse than any blow. Because silence before an attack means the attack will be serious. In the South Side, Don Raul used to say, "If they don't come after you for a week, it means they're not waiting for the moment. They're waiting for an excuse. They need an excuse so they can say later, 'It's your own fault.'" Ethan walks into the house. Grandma isn't asleep. She's sitting in the kitchen. There's a box in front of her, an old one, a cardboard box with handwriting in Korean. Ethan doesn't have time to read it. Grandma closes the box and puts it under the table. She says, "Sit down. Eat."
Ethan sits down. He eats. He doesn't ask about the box. He saw only one word on the lid, a surname, Park. His surname. His father's surname. Grandma pours him some barley tea and goes to her room. She takes the box with her. Ethan sits alone in the kitchen. It's getting light outside. School in 3 hours. The market in 6 hours. In between, his mother in the hospital, the girl walking 10 steps behind him, and the guy with empty eyes who silently memorizes everything. And the box with the surname Park that his grandmother hides under the table when he enters. The 12th day. Min Hyuk strikes the first blow, not with his fists, smarter. In the morning, Ethan opens his locker in the changing room and finds a pack of cigarettes and a lighter inside. Not his. He doesn't smoke. Never has. He picks the pack between 2 fingers and looks at it. A Korean brand. Cheap. The guys from the West Wing smoke those around the corner of the school. Ethan realizes it immediately. A plant. Classic. On the South Side, they did this with drugs. Here, with cigarettes. Different stakes, but the same scheme. Make the teacher open the locker during a check. Find the cigarettes. File a violation. 3 violations, and expulsion. Ethan puts the pack back in the locker, closes it, doesn't throw it away, goes to class. During break, he approaches the teacher and says that someone opened his locker and put cigarettes in there. He speaks calmly, in front of the whole class, 32 witnesses. The teacher hesitates, doesn't know how to react. Ethan says, "You can check. I don't smoke. My mother is in the oncology ward with cancer. I wouldn't smoke near her." The class is silent. The teacher goes to the locker, opens it, finds the cigarettes, looks at Ethan, looks at the class, takes the pack and says he'll look into it. Ethan knows no one will look into it, but 32 people saw and heard it. If they find something else next time, everyone will know it was planted.
Min Hyuk makes the first move. On the 13th day, the second move. A message appears in the school chat from an anonymous account. A half-Korean from Chicago is beating up Korean kids. There's a photo attached, the guy from the bathroom incident, a bruise on his ribs. The caption, "The foreigner attacked the student first for no reason." Ethan finds out about this from Hyun. She approaches him during break and shows him her phone. She says, "This is about you." Ethan reads it. He looks at the photo. He says, "He hit me first." Hyun says, "I know, everyone knows." But there are 200 people in the chat, and not everyone knows. Ethan hands back the phone. He says, "Fine," and he walks away. Hyun stands there with the phone in her hand. She expected him to get angry, or scared, or ask for help. He said, "Fine," as if someone had just told him the weather forecast. Hyun thinks this guy is either the dumbest person she's ever met, or the calmest. She doesn't know yet that it's the latter. On the 14th day, Ethan finds a note in his locker, in Korean. The handwriting is neat. He doesn't understand half the characters and takes the note to his grandmother that evening. His grandmother reads it. Her expression doesn't change. She says, "You're being called in for a talk. 3rd floor of the West Wing, tomorrow after school." Ethan asks who's calling him in. Grandma says, "The one who owns that floor." Ethan nods. Grandma says one more thing. "Don't go." Ethan is silent. Grandma repeats, "Don't go." He replies, "If I don't go, then tomorrow the note will go to someone who can't speak for themselves." Grandma closes her eyes. She sits like that for about 10 seconds. She opens her eyes. She says, "Then go, but come back." The 15th day. After school, Ethan goes up to the 3rd floor of the West Wing. The hallway is empty, completely. Even the lights are off in half the classrooms. He walks down the hallway and counts the doors. Room 3-7. The door is ajar. He goes in. Inside, the desks are pushed up against the walls. A chair stands in the center. Min-hyuk is sitting in the chair. 6 people are standing around him. Ethan scans the room in a second. 6 people. 4 are school-aged, 2 are older. One of those 2 is the guy from the basement, the one he punched in the solar plexus. The guy is looking at Ethan with hatred. The second one is a stranger. He's big, hands in his pockets, standing by the window. A professional. Not a student and not a former student, an adult. Ethan reads him instantly. This guy beats people up for money. Shoulders relaxed, weight on his front leg, ready to move at any second. Min-hyuk speaks. His voice is even. No anger, no threat, just words. "You're new here. You don't know the rules. I'll explain them to you. There's an order here. I didn't make it up. It was here before me. It'll be here after me. You can sit wherever you want and eat whatever you want." He remembers a blow to the solar plexus. The body remembers better than the head. The big guy by the window peels himself away from the wall, slowly. Ethan turns his whole torso toward him, assesses. Left-handed, strikes from below. The first blow will be to the torso. Weaker right hand. Elbow injury. Old one. Ethan says, "Don't." Krupny stops. He looks at Min-hyuk. He waits for the command. Min-hyuk raises his hand. "Stop." The big guy steps back toward the window. Min-hyuk gets up from his chair. He walks over to Ethan, stops half a meter away, speaks quietly. "You're brave, or stupid. I haven't decided yet. But you have a week. In a week, I'll decide." Min-hyuk leaves. 6 men follow him. The big man is the last to leave. At the door, he turns around and looks at Ethan for a long time. Then he leaves. Ethan stands alone in the empty office. The desks are pushed against the walls. A chair in the center. Light streams in from the window. He takes out his phone and calls his mother. She doesn't answer. Second call. She doesn't answer. Third. Voicemail. Ethan stands there listening to the dial tone. He hangs up. He leaves the office. He walks down the empty hallway. He goes down the stairs. Meyer stands at the exit of the West Wing, 10 steps from the door. She's holding a math notebook.
She sees him and takes a step closer. 1 step. 9 steps instead of 10. Ethan walks past her. She follows him. 9 steps. At the bus stop, he sits down on a bench. She sits at the other end. She takes out her notebook and draws. Ethan watches out of the corner of his eye. On the page, a little man stands alone in an empty room. 6 shadows surround him. The little man isn't afraid. He just stands there. The bus arrives. They get on. Meyer gets off 3 stops early. She doesn't say goodbye. Ethan rides on. At home, his grandmother sets dinner in front of him. He eats in silence. An hour later, he heads to the market. He hauls boxes until 4 in the morning. He returns.
He sleeps for 2 hours. The alarm. School. The 16th day, 1 week left. Minhyuk set the deadline. Ethan doesn't know what will happen in a week, but he knows one thing. He won't leave. Not this school, not this neighborhood, not this story. His mother lies in the hospital, fighting. His grandmother sits in the kitchen, waiting. Mira follows him and says nothing. Yuna stands on the roof, counting her girls. Somewhere in the West Wing, a guy with empty eyes is counting down the days. Ethan eats his grandmother's rice and goes to school. A week, 7 days. He makes the most of every one. The first day of 7. Ethan isn't waiting, he's taking action. In the morning, before school, he stops by the nurse's office and asks the nurse about the boy with the bandaged wrist he saw on the 2nd day. The nurse says the boy's name is Sun Jae-ho from 1-2. His wrist is broken. He said he fell down the stairs. Ethan nods and leaves. He finds Sun Jae-ho during recess, a small boy, skinny. His eyes are frightened. Ethan sits down next to him on a bench in the courtyard. He doesn't look at him. He stares straight ahead. He speaks. "I know you didn't fall down the stairs. You don't have to answer. I'll just say one thing. If anyone touches you again, come to 2-3. My desk is by the window, back row." He gets up and leaves. Jae-ho sits on the bench and doesn't move. 2 hours later, he comes to 2-3 and stands by the door. He doesn't come in. He just stands there. Ethan nods to him across the classroom. Jae-ho leaves. But the next day he comes back again, and the next. The 2nd day out of 7. After class, Ethan goes to the back door of the gym. He examines the lock. Simple. Combination. 4 digits. He doesn't pick it. He memorizes the model and looks it up online that evening. A standard lock. Factory code 0000. Most people don't change the factory code. Ethan enters 0000. The lock doesn't open. He enters 1234. It doesn't open. 1111. It opens. Ethan goes inside. A staircase to the basement. It's dark down there. He turns on his phone's flashlight. The basement is empty. Concrete floor. Walls with no windows. A mattress in the corner. Old. Dirty. Empty beer cans nearby. An ashtray. A grocery bag. Ethan takes out his phone and photographs everything. Every corner. Every detail. The mattress. The cans. The ashtray. The bag. He takes 23 photos. He goes out, locks the door, leaves. He uploads the photos to the cloud and deletes from his phone. If they take his phone, they won't find the photos. Day 3 of 7. Emily Cho sits down next to him in the cafeteria. She speaks English. Finally, someone at this school who understands why the pizza here isn't pizza. Ethan looks at her. She's Korean, but talks like a girl from California. The accent, the gestures, the way she sits, leaning back. She transferred from Los Angeles a year ago. Ethan asks why.
Emily says her parents got divorced. Her mom brought her here.
Said the education is better here. Actually, it's cheaper to live here. And her dad isn't here. Ethan nods. They eat in silence. Then Emily says, "You know the whole school is talking about you." Ethan says he doesn't know and doesn't care. Emily laughs. She says, "You're either lying or you're the first teenager in history who doesn't give a damn about what others think." Ethan chews his rice. He says, "The second one." Emily stops laughing. She looks at him. She says more quietly, "I don't care either. That's why everyone here thinks I'm a show-off." Ethan says, "It's because you speak English loudly. They think you're showing off, but you're just speaking the way you're used to." Emily freezes. Then she says very quietly, "No one here understood that before." They are silent. They eat. 2 tables over, Mireille is drawing in her notebook. Hyun walks by with a tray and glances at Ethan and Emily. Her expression doesn't change, but her pace slows for half a second. Ethan doesn't notice.
Emily notices. D. The 4th day of 7. After school, Ethan doesn't go to the market, but to the library. He sits down at a computer and searches for information on South Korean laws. An article about adults trespassing on school grounds. An article about sexual assault of minors. An article about teenage gangs. He reads for 2 hours. He doesn't understand half of it. The Korean is too complex. Legal jargon. He copies the key paragraphs and runs them through the translator on his phone. The picture comes together. What Min Hyuk's people are doing through the back door isn't a school violation. It's a criminal offense. Articles 305 and 339 of the Criminal Code. Real jail time. Not for the students, but for those adults who come, and for whoever gives them access. Min Hyuk is 17, a minor. But under Korean law, aiding and abetting a crime against another minor is treated separately. Ethan jots down the article numbers in his phone notes. Day 5 of 7. Park Sora approaches him, class president of 3-2, a junior. She's a centimeter taller than him. Her posture is straight, a folder in her hands. She speaks without greeting him. "I've assessed your situation. Under current law, on your current trajectory, you'll be locked up in 4 months. 2 incidents involving the use of force. One was caught on camera at the gym entrance. If they add the planted cigarettes, that's 3 violations. Plus, you're a stateless foreigner. Deportation is possible." Ethan looks at her. She doesn't blink. She continues. "I can prevent this, but I need you to listen." Ethan says, "Why does this matter to you?" Sora opens a folder. She pulls out a sheet of paper. There's a list on it. 12 names. 12 students. Next to each name is a date and a description. Wrist injury. Bruises on the face. Absent from classes for 2 weeks. Transfer to another school. Suicide attempt. This is her list. She's been compiling it for 6 months. Every case of violence at Tarian High she's been able to document. Ethan reads the list, slowly, name by name. He gets to the last one, Chang Meyer, the gym basement. The date matches the night he went down the stairs. Ethan looks up. He looks at Sora. He says, "What do you need from me?" Sora says, "Time. I need 3 months to gather evidence that the prosecutor's office will accept. I need you to stay out of jail for those 3 months. And I need you to stop settling everything with your fists, because every punch you throw is a line in their case against you, not in my case against them." Ethan is silent. Sora waits. He says, "I have 2 days left. Min Hyuk gave me a week." Sora nods. She says, "I know. That's why I'm here now and not in a month." Ethan says, "The law is just a set of fighting rules where you can't strike first. I like that." Sora blinks. For the first time during the entire conversation, Something other than calculation appears on her face. Something small, almost imperceptible. She puts the folder away and says, "I'll come up with a plan. I'll bring it tomorrow. Don't do anything until tomorrow." She leaves. Ethan stands in the hallway and thinks. 12 names, 6 months of gathering. This girl worked alone, without help, without protection, at a school where a list like that could get you beaten up by any of the 5 kings. He thinks about how, for the first time since arriving in Korea, there are people around him who are doing the same thing he is, just differently. Yuna provides physical protection. Sora gathers evidence. Mira stays silent but walks beside him. Emily understands his language. And somewhere on the periphery is Ha-in, who hasn't found her place yet but is searching. The 6th day of 7. Evening. Ethan is sitting in his grandmother's kitchen. His mother calls. A video call. She's in a hospital room. An IV drip is nearby. Her face is thinner than it was a week ago. She says the biopsy showed the tumor isn't growing. For now. Treatment continues. Ethan says he's glad. His mother asks about school. Ethan says he's made friends. His mother smiles. She says, "Really?" Ethan says, "Really." And for the first time in 2 weeks, he isn't lying. His mother looks at him through the screen. She says, "Son, I know you. You have that look on your face when you've decided to do something and nothing will stop you." Ethan is silent. His mother says, "Whatever you decide, just come home every night." Ethan nods. He hangs up. His grandmother is sitting across from him, peeling garlic. She heard everything. She doesn't say a word. She pushes a plate of rice toward him. Ethan eats. Day 7 of 7. Morning. Ethan walks to school. In his pocket, a phone with 23 photos in the cloud. In his head, the numbers of the articles in the criminal code. In his backpack is the notebook with the plan that Sora brought yesterday. 3 pages of small handwriting. Every step is laid out. He enters the school. He climbs the stairs. On the 3rd floor of the West Wing stands Minhyuk, alone, no entourage, hands in his pockets. He looks at Ethan. Ethan stops. They stand facing each other in the empty hallway. Minhyuk speaks. A week has passed. Ethan says, "Yes." Minhyuk says, "You're staying." Ethan says, "Yes." Minhyuk nods. He says, "Then we'll begin." He turns and walks away. Ethan stands in the hallway. Light from the window falls in streaks across the floor. He takes a breath. Exhales. He walks into the classroom. He sits down at his desk. By the window. Back row. He opens his notebook. On the first page is Sora's plan. He reads the first line. Step 1. Don't strike first. Ethan smirks. He already knows that. The bell rings. The war begins. Minhyuk starts that same day, not on his own, through the system. After the 3rd period, the vice principal enters class 2-3 and calls Ethan to the principal's office. Ethan stands up. The class is silent. 32 pairs of eyes on his back. He walks down the hallway behind the dean and counts his steps. 74 steps to the office. The principal is sitting at his desk, a bald man of about 55 with tired eyes and a cheap tie. A woman in a suit stands nearby, not from the school. Ethan reads her instantly. A lawyer, an expensive handbag, expensive shoes, manicure. The watch on her wrist is worth more than his grandmother's house. The principal speaks. Pak Ihan.
A complaint has been filed by the parents of a student you hit in the school restroom. The family has hired a lawyer. They are demanding your suspension and are considering filing a police report. Ethan stands in front of the desk and listens. He doesn't sit down. He wasn't offered a seat. The woman lawyer takes out a folder and begins to list the details. Date of the incident, the victim's testimony, medical report, photos of the bruises, the doctor's conclusion. Everything is neat. Everything is prepared. Professional work. Ethan waits for her to finish. Then he speaks. The victim struck first. I was defending myself. There was another student in the bathroom, a first grader. They were taking money from him. This is extortion. The principal raises his hand. He says, "We have no testimony from the first grader." Ethan says, "His name is John Min-soo, grade 1 to 3. Ask him." The lawyer says, "A minor's testimony in a school incident has no legal weight without parental confirmation. Min-soo's parents won't confirm it." Ethan understands. Min-soo's parents won't confirm it because they're afraid, or because someone explained to them what confirmation would cost them. The principal says, "Park Ihwan, I am required to suspend you from classes for 3 days while the investigation is ongoing. This is standard procedure." Ethan nods. He leaves the office. Sora is standing in the hallway. She heard, not the whole conversation, but enough. She says, "Attorney Cho Sung-hyo works for Han Ji-soo's father's firm. I checked."
Ethan looks at her. He says, "Han Ji-soo, who is that?" Sora says, "The top of the pyramid. He's above Min-hyuk, above all 5 kings. He doesn't fight. He controls. His father owns half the commercial real estate in Taedong-dong. Lawyers, connections in the police, connections in City Hall." Ethan is silent. He thought he was fighting Min-hyuk. Turns out Min-hyuk is just a pawn. The mastermind is someone else. Sora pulls out a piece of paper. She says, "I've prepared a response. The parent's complaint was filed in free form. There's a procedural error in it. The lawyer listed the date of the incident as Wednesday. The incident was on Tuesday. A minor detail, but enough to delay the hearing for 2 weeks. In 2 weeks, I'll gather Min-soo's testimony through his older brother, who's in college and isn't dependent on his parents." Ethan listens. This 17-year-old girl thinks like a prosecutor, not like a schoolgirl, like a prosecutor. He says, "Go ahead. 3 days suspension." Ethan doesn't go to school. He stays home the first day. Grandma doesn't ask why. She can see he isn't sick or hurt, so she knows. Ethan helps her in the kitchen. He cuts vegetables, washes the dishes. Grandma teaches him how to make kimchi, shows him how to properly rub the cabbage with the pepper paste. His hands are burning. Ethan endures it. Grandma says, "Your father didn't like peppers either, but he ate them because I cooked them." Ethan freezes. Every time Grandma talks about his father, it's just one sentence, no more. As if she's doling it out in tiny bits. As if the whole story is too heavy to tell all at once. He wants to ask. He doesn't ask. He waits. The second day of his suspension, Mireille arrives in the morning. She stands at the door of Grandma's house. She doesn't ring the bell. She just stands there. Grandma notices her through the window. She opens the door. Mireille bows deeply. Grandma looks at her and says, "Come in." Mireille comes in. She sits on the floor by the table. She takes out a notebook and draws. She doesn't say a word. Grandma sets a plate of rice cakes and tea in front of her. Mireille eats with one hand and draws with the other. Ethan sits across from her and does the homework Emily brought him last night. The 3 of them sit in silence. Grandma, Ethan, Mireille. The silence isn't heavy. The silence is warm. 2 hours later, Mireille gets up. She bows to Grandma. She leaves. At the door, she turns around and looks at Ethan, then at Grandma. Then she leaves. Grandma says, "A good girl. Quiet." Ethan nods. Grandmother says, She didn't come to you. She came to a safe place. Ethan is silent. He knows grandmother is right. The third day of suspension. Yuna calls in the evening. Ethan doesn't know how she got his number. Yuna speaks briefly. Min-hyuk took advantage of the 3 days you've been gone. Yesterday, his men approached Jaeho, that first year with the wrist. They told him that if he shows up at door 2-3 again, his other hand will be broken too.
Ethan grips the phone. His knuckles turn white. Yuna continues. My girls intercepted Jaeho and took him away. He's home now. They didn't lay a finger on him, but the boy is in a panic. Ethan says, thank you. Yuna says, don't thank me. Just make sure this doesn't happen again. She hangs up. Ethan stands in the hallway of his grandmother's house and stares at the wall. On the wall is a photograph, an old one, black and white. A young man in a suit. His face is serious. His eyes are like Ethan's. His hands are in his pockets. In the background is the prosecutor's office building. Ethan looks at the photo and sees his father for the first time. Not a childhood memory, not a blurry face from his dreams. A real person, with a specific gaze, with specific hands that, according to his grandmother, were just like Ethan's. He stands by the wall for a long time. Then he goes to bed. Day 4. Ethan returns to school, first period. He walks into the classroom and sits down at his desk. Everyone is watching. He opens his textbook, as if nothing had happened. During recess, Hyun approaches him. She says, "Are you okay?" Ethan says, "Yes." Hyun fidgets. She isn't used to fidgeting. She's used to everyone else fidgeting in front of her. She says, "While you were gone, I found out something." The lawyer who came to see the principal. She works for Han Ji-soo's father. And the complaint wasn't filed by that boy's parents. It was filed by Han Ji-soo's senior's office on behalf of the parents. The parents just signed it. Ethan looks at her. He says, "How do you know that?" Hyun says, "My father owns a chain of coffee shops, 12 locations in Taedongdong and Gangnam. 4 of them rent space from Han Ji-soo's senior's company. My father had dinner with him last week. I overheard the conversation. Han Sr. mentioned a troublesome foreign student and said his lawyer was already handling it." Ethan is silent. Hyun continues, "I don't know why I'm telling you this. It's not in my best interest. If my father finds out, he'll kill me, figuratively speaking," Ethan says. "Then why?" Hyun is silent for about 5 seconds. Then she says, "Because I'm tired of being a showpiece." Ethan doesn't understand the Korean word. Hyun translates it into English. Showpiece, something for display. Ethan nods. He says, "Thank you." Hyun turns and walks away, quickly, as if she's afraid she'll change her mind. Ethan stands in the hallway and pieces the picture together. Min-hyuk is the hand. Han Ji-soo is the head. Han Ji-soo Sr. is the money. The lawyer is the tool. It's all connected. School, business, the police, everything. He thought he was fighting a guy in the school hallway. He's fighting the system. In Chicago, Don Raoul said it. You can't beat the system with your fists. You can only beat the system with another system. Ethan now has the beginning of a system. Yuna with 23 girls and the support network. Sora with the briefcase and the legal mind. Hyun with inside information. Mirei with a silence that speaks volumes. Emily with a tongue that will open doors Korean can't reach. Min-soo with testimony. Jaeho with a broken bone. And 23 photos from the basement on the cloud.
Ethan heads to class. He opens Sora's plan in his notebook. He reads the second step. Don't give them a reason. Every action must be defensible in court. He closes the notebook and listens to the teacher. For the first time in 2 weeks, he's really listening. Math. Numbers are the same in any language. 3 weeks after returning, Ethan isn't fighting. Not once. He goes to school. He sits in class. He eats in the cafeteria. He works at the market at night. Grandma gives him a double portion. He eats it all. The silence around him affects the pyramid more than any blow. They expected him to snap. He doesn't snap. They expected him to go to Minhyuk. He doesn't go. They expected him to start gathering his gang. He walks alone, eats alone, leaves alone. And that scares them, because a man who walks alone and isn't afraid must know something they don't know. At the end of the 3rd week, Minhyuk changes tactics. He stops operating through the school. He starts operating through the neighborhood. Grandma comes back from the market and says that the neighbor 2 houses down has stopped saying hello to her. Then a second neighbor. Then the shopkeeper at the corner store. Grandma doesn't explain why. She knows why. Someone has been spreading a rumor around the neighborhood. Old Lady Park's grandson is beating up Korean kids at school. A half-breed from America. She brought him here, and now he's causing trouble. Grandma sits in the kitchen peeling garlic. Her hands don't shake. Her face is calm. But Ethan sees how she squeezes the head of garlic a little harder than necessary. He sits down across from her. He says, "I'll sort this out." Grandma shakes her head. She says, "Don't try to sort it out. Rumors are like the wind.
They blow and pass. But Ethan sees that the wind is blowing from one place, and this wind won't blow over on its own. That same evening, he calls Yuna. He says, "They've gone beyond the school grounds." Yuna is silent. Then she says, "I know. My father was told at work that his daughter is hanging out with a foreigner who beats up students. My father came home and asked." I explained. He believed me, but not everyone will believe it, Ethan says. "What should we do?" Yuna says. "We have a common problem. It's time to get organized." That same evening, the school rooftop. Ethan, Yuna, Sora, Hye-in, Emily. Mir sits a little to the side and draws. 5 people stand in a semicircle. Sora begins. She lays out her folder on the concrete railing. 12 cases, testimonies, dates, medical reports. She says, "This isn't enough for the prosecutor's office. We need a direct witness to one of the crimes who is willing to testify on the record.
We need a link between Minhyuk and the adults who come in through the back door. We need someone from the pyramid who will talk." Yuna speaks. Among the 5 kings, there is one who is wavering. Park Dong-hyun, the king of the South Wing. He's 18. He'll graduate in 6 months. He wants to go to college. He has no criminal record and wants to keep it that way. If we approach him the right way, he might talk. Ha-in says, "My father has dinner with Senior Han once a month. I can gather information, schedules, contacts, who's connected to whom. But I need to make sure no one finds out. If my father finds out, he'll pull me out of school within 24 hours, Emily says. I can translate everything into English. If this goes beyond Korea, if we need international pressure, I know where to write. A classmate's mother in Los Angeles works at a newspaper." Ethan listens. He's silent. Then he says, "I have photos of the basement, 23 of them. A mattress, jars, an ashtray. The lock code is 1111. If the police check, they'll find fingerprints. But the police won't check until they get a call from higher up, Yuna says. My father is a police officer. Everyone turns to her. Yuna speaks calmly. Juvenile division. He can't handle the case because of a conflict of interest. His daughter goes to this school. But he can pass the information on to the right person, if there's enough information. Sora nods. She says, then here's the plan. First, Ethan doesn't fight. No incidents. Second, I'll lay the legal groundwork and look for an eyewitness. Third, Ha-In gathers information on Han Ji-soo Sr. Fourth, Yuna sets up a channel to the police through her father. Fifth, Emily sets up an international escape route in case they get blocked from the inside. Ethan says. And Mide? Everyone looks at Mide. She's sitting off to the side, drawing. She doesn't look up. Ethan walks over to her, sits down next to her, peeks into her sketchbook. On the page are 6 people on a rooftop. 5 are standing, 1 is sitting and drawing. Ethan speaks quietly. You heard everything. Mir nods without looking up. Ethan says, when you're ready, you'll need to tell someone. Not me, not them, the police or the prosecutor. What happened in the basement? Mir stops drawing. The pen freezes on the paper. She sits motionless. Then she slowly lifts her head and looks at Ethan. There is no fear in her eyes. There is something else. Resolution. She nods. Once. Ethan stands up. He tells everyone. Then we'll start. Yuna says, one condition. We do this together or not at all. No one goes alone. No one decides for the others. Ethan looks at her. Nods. They go their separate ways. Ethan is the last to come down from the roof. Mir stands by the stairwell door. 10 steps. No, 8. She's cut 2 more steps. He walks past. She follows him. 8 steps. Work starts next week. Sora meets her older brother Minsu at a cafe 3 blocks from school. The guy is nervous. He's 21, as at law school. He knows his brother is being beaten. He knows who's doing it. He can't do anything because his parents have forbidden him from getting involved. His parents rent an apartment in a building owned by Han Sr.'s company. If they make a fuss, they'll be evicted. Sora listens. She takes notes. She doesn't press him. She explains. If Minsu gives testimony anonymously through a lawyer directly to the prosecutor, bypassing the police, his name won't appear in the case file until the trial begins. And by the time of the trial, your family can move. I'll help you find a place to live. Minsu's brother looks at her. The 17-year-old high school student speaks to him like a lawyer with 20 years of experience. He nods. He speaks. I'll talk to Minsu. Meanwhile, Ha-In works quietly. At another dinner between her father and his business partners, she sits in the living room and pretends to be studying for exams.
She listens to the conversation through the wall. She takes notes on her phone. Names, dates, amounts. She learns that Han Ji-soo pays the principal of Terryon's school every month. Not much. Enough so the principal doesn't ask questions. Enough so complaints disappear. Enough so the cameras in the West Wing have been turned off since last September. The cameras are off. Ethan remembers this. There are no cameras in the basement. But in the hallway outside the back door of the gym hall, there was a camera. It was there and it was turned off. On whose orders? The principal's. At whose request? Han Sr.'s. The chain gets longer. Ethan comes home. Grandma is in the kitchen. He sits down and says, Grandma, tell me about Dad. Grandma puts down her knife, looks at him for a long time, says, Not now. Ethan says, When? Grandma says,
when you're ready to hear it. Ethan wants to say he's ready, but he looks into Grandma's eyes and sees something heavy in them.
Something she's been carrying for 12 years and can't put down. He stays silent, eats rice, washes dishes, goes to the market, carries boxes, returns at 4 in the morning, sleeps for 2 hours. School, repeat. He gets used to this rhythm. The body adapts. 2 hours of sleep, 4 hours of work, 8 hours of school. The rest in between. Don Raul used to say, "The body can do anything, the mind breaks down." Ethan's mind doesn't break down. For now. Month 2. Ethan keeps his word and doesn't fight. 31 days without a single punch. But the pyramid isn't standing still. The kings of the outer floors are starting to get nervous. Not because of Ethan, because the silence around him. Rumors are spreading through the school. They say the new kid from Chicago is gathering dirt. They say he has connections with the police. They say So Yoon's crew is behind him. No one knows anything for sure. Everyone knows enough to be afraid. The first to fall is the king of the North Wing. Not because of Ethan, because of himself. His name is Lee Tae-ho, 17 years old, broad-shouldered, loud, used to being feared. In the second week of the second month, he approaches a group of first-year girls in the North Wing hallway and demands money to let them pass. Standard procedure, he's done this 100 times. But this time, one of the girls refuses. She's from Yuna's crew. She stands her ground and says no. Tae-ho isn't used to hearing no from first-year girls. He raises his hand. 3 girls from Yuna's team come around the corner, silently. They stand next to the first-year girl. Tae-ho lowers his hand. He looks at them. The 4 girls stand in front of him, not moving. He turns around and walks away. He mutters something under his breath. 2 days later, he tries again. A different hallway, a different first-year girl. Same reaction. 3 of Yuna's girls appear out of nowhere. Tae-ho begins to realize that the East Wing has set up a network.
His territory is no longer his alone. On his 3rd attempt, he goes not to the first graders, but directly to one of Yuna's girls. He grabs her by the hand in the hallway. The girl doesn't scream. She doesn't pull away. She takes out her phone with her free hand and presses a single button. 40 seconds later, Yuna and her 5 girls are in the hallway. Yuna approaches Tae-ho. She speaks quietly. "Let go." Tae-ho lets go. Not because he's afraid of Yuna, because there's a phone camera next to Yuna. It's recording. Yuna says, "I'm recording this. My girl has a bruise on her wrist. If you come near any of us again, the recording goes to the principal, to my father, and to the chat." Tae-ho clenches his fists. He wants to hit her, but the camera. He turns around and walks away. From this day on, the North Wing is neutral. Tae-ho didn't disappear. He didn't leave. He just stopped acting. His people see that the boss has backed down.
2 of his 4 closest associates start coming to school alone, without an entourage, without insignia. The pyramid loses its first piece. Min-hyuk finds out. He doesn't react outwardly, but Ethan notices that in the West Wing, security on the 3rd floor has doubled. Previously, 2 were on duty by the stairs. Now there are 4. In the 3rd week of the 2nd month, Ethan speaks to Han Ji-soo for the first time. Not on purpose, by chance, in the school library. Ethan is looking for a book on Korean history for a presentation. Ji-soo is sitting at a table by the window, reading. Slender, neat. His hair is perfectly styled. His uniform is without a single wrinkle. On his wrist is a watch that costs half a year's salary for his grandmother. He looks up and sees Ethan. He speaks in perfect English, accent-free. "You're Park Ihan. I'm Han Ji-soo. I think we should get to know each other." Ethan sits down across from him. He looks at him. Ji-soo smiles. Not hostile, not fake, just smiles. He says, "You're an interesting person. 1 month at school and you've already become the main topic of every conversation." Ethan remains silent. Jisoo continues. I'm not Minhyuk. I don't hit people. I actually think violence is a sign of a lack of imagination. I don't need you to leave school. I need you to stop breaking things that work. Ethan says. What things? Jisoo says. Order, the system, balance. This school operates in a certain way, not perfectly, but it works. The weak pay the strong defend the territory. The territory creates stability. Stability allows everyone else to study and take exams and get into universities. You're destroying that stability. Ethan listens. Then he says, the weak pay the strong. That's not stability. That's racketeering. Jisoo smiles wider. He speaks. Semantics. Ethan says, no, that's not semantics. A 16-year-old girl was dragged into the gym basement by 2 adult men. That's not stability. That's a crime.
And the man who gave them the key is sitting on the 3rd floor of the West Wing.
Jisoo stops smiling for the first time. His face goes blank. Not angry. Blank. Like a screen that's been turned off. He says, you're talking about things you don't understand. Ethan stands up. He says, I understand enough. He walks out of the library. In the hallway, Emily is waiting for him. She saw him go into the library and saw who was sitting there. She says, you were talking to Jisoo. Ethan nods. Emily says, be careful. He's not like Minhyuk. Minhyuk hits. Jisoo destroys. Quietly, without a trace. In Los Angeles, I knew people like that. Kids from rich families who never get their hands dirty because they have people to do it for them. Ethan says, I know. Emily says, no, you don't know. Because in Chicago, you fought people who fight. Here, you're fighting a man who has never fought and never will. And that's exactly why you can't beat him the usual way. Ethan is silent. She's right.
He can feel it. Jisoo isn't a fist. Jisoo is a chessboard. And Ethan is a pawn that's reached the queen's rank but still can't see the whole board. Evening at the market. Ethan is hauling boxes. The man with scars on his hands gives him coffee again. He says, you've got dark circles under your eyes. Not getting enough sleep? Ethan drinks the coffee. He says, 2 hours. The man shakes his head. He says, at your age, I also thought I wouldn't break. I broke at 23. My back. I've been living on pills ever since. Get more sleep, kid. The fish will wait. Ethan finishes his coffee. He goes back to the boxes. He knows the man is right. His body is sending signals. His hands shake slightly in the mornings. His eyes can't focus during the first class. Once he fell asleep standing up at the market. The foreman shook him awake. But he can't stop. His mother's hospital room costs money. His grandmother's pension doesn't cover everything. Insurance doesn't cover a private room. And his mother can't sleep in a shared ward. She just can't. Ethan pushes himself to the limit every day so his mother can receive treatment in peace. And he doesn't tell anyone about it. The 5th week of the 2nd month. The school festival is in 10 days. Every class is preparing a performance. Class 2 to 3 decides to set up a fighting ring. Staged fights in the style of MMA. It's not Ethan's idea. It's the class president's idea, who decided to cash in on the popularity of the new student from Chicago. Ethan refuses to participate. He says it simply, I won't. The class president insists. He says that without Ethan, the act won't draw an audience. Ethan repeats, I won't do it. Fighting for the crowd's amusement. This isn't a show. The class president backs down. The class decides to put on the act without him. A Chicago-style cafe, hot dogs, and American music. Ethan agrees to grill the sausages. Meanwhile, he learns from Yuna that Class 2-5 is doing the same thing. A boxing ring, but more serious. They've invited older guys for the spectacle, real ones. Yuna says the names. 2 of them are the same ones, from the basement. Ethan rests the spatula on the counter. His expression doesn't change, but his hands stop. Yuna speaks. They'll come as guests, as senior alumni. Legally. The administration will let them in because the festival is open to the public. They'll be in the hall, among the students, among the first graders. Meyer will be at school. Ethan is silent. He thinks. Then he says, "I'll figure it out." Yuna says, "How?" Ethan says, "Not with my fists." For the next 10 days, Ethan prepares. Not for a fight, for a performance. Every evening after the market, he sits with his grandmother and studies Korean. Not conversation, specific words, specific phrases. His grandmother doesn't ask why. She just teaches, repeats, corrects his pronunciation. Ethan writes it down in a notebook and memorizes it. Meanwhile, Sora is working. Minsu's brother agreed. Minsu will testify through a lawyer, but they need a lawyer they can trust. Sora says she knows one. A former colleague of her father's. He left the firm 3 years ago. Now he handles cases defending children's rights at a non-profit organization. Sora contacts him. The lawyer listens. He says he'll take the case if there's evidence. Sora gives him copies of her file. 12 cases. The lawyer looks them over. He says this isn't enough for a trial, but it's enough for a prosecutor's review. We need a direct witness to a crime, not just an assault. Assault is an administrative offense. We need something criminal. The basement. We need Mire. Sora calls Ethan. She says without Mire, nothing will happen. Ethan knows. He knew from the very beginning. But he can't pressure Mire. She has to do it herself. He doesn't go to her, doesn't ask, waits. On the 6th day before the festival, Mire comes to him on her own, in the cafeteria. She sits down not 2 tables away, just one.
She takes out a notebook, opens it to the last page, shows it to Ethan. There's a drawing on the page. A little girl is standing in front of a big door. It's dark behind the door. The girl is holding something small and bright in her hand, a flashlight or a pen. Ethan looks at the drawing, then at Mir. She nods, once. Ethan takes a small bundle out of his backpack, wrapped in cloth. Inside is a fountain pen, an old one, Japanese, a platinum from the 80s, his father's. His grandmother gave it to him last night, without explaining. She just put it on the table and said, "Give it to whoever needs it." Ethan holds out the pen to Mir. He says, "My father used this pen to tell the truth. You tell it too." Mir takes the pen with both hands. She looks at it, runs her finger along the barrel, then presses it to her chest, closes her eyes, sits like that for 10 seconds, opens them, nods again. Her eyes are wet, but she isn't crying. She holds it. Ethan stands up and leaves. Meyer stays with the pen. 2 days later, Sora reports that Meyer went to see the lawyer. She wrote her testimony by hand, with a fountain pen, 4 pages, without saying a single word aloud. The lawyer read it and his expression changed 3 times. Then he called the prosecutor. Festival Day. Tarion School is buzzing. 3,000 students, parents, guests. Each class in its own wing puts on a performance. Music, the smell of food, laughter. Ethan stands behind the counter for Class 2-3, grilling hot dogs. His classmates are nearby. They're seeing him relaxed for the first time. He's even joking. He says that in Chicago, a hot dogs without mustard is a crime, but here they put mustard on everything, including rice. His classmates laugh. He's almost a normal teenager. Almost. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon,
Yuna sends a message. They're here. The gym. Ethan takes off his apron. He tells his classmates he'll be back soon. He heads to the gym.
Inside there are spectators, about 200 of them. In a makeshift ring, 2 guys from 2 to 5 are putting on a staged fight. It's bad, just like in the movies, swinging punches into thin air. The crowd claps. 4 guests are standing by the wall, older, not school kids. Ethan recognizes 2 of them, the guy from the basement, the very same one, the scar on his cheekbone, and the second one, a big guy with an injured elbow. They're watching the ring and laughing. School kids are around them, first graders, girls. A first grader stands next to one of the 4 and smiles awkwardly. She feels uncomfortable. She doesn't want to stand there, but she doesn't leave because she's afraid. Ethan takes it all in 3 seconds. He scans the room. 200 people. 20 of them are from Yuna's team, scattered, unnoticed. Sora has a phone in her hands, recording. Hyun is in the crowd by the entrance. Emily is by the emergency exit. Meyer isn't there. Meyer didn't come.
That's what they agreed on. She doesn't need to see these people. Ethan walks through the crowd. He goes up on stage. One of the guys from class 2-5 tries to stop him. Ethan walks past him. He stands in front of the microphone. The room falls silent. Not right away. Gradually. Someone shushes him. Someone laughs. Then silence. 3,000 people in the building. 200 in the hall. A dozen teachers with phones. Ethan speaks. In broken Korean. Slowly. Each word separately. He says there are 3,000 students at this school. He says he knows 6 people in the audience who have done something bad to specific people over the past year. He says he won't fight today. Today, he's going to name names. The room falls silent. Ethan calls out the first name. The guy from the basement. His name and what he did. In 1 sentence. Short. No details. Enough to understand. He calls out the second name. The big guy. What he did. The third. The fourth. The fifth. The sixth.
6 of them stand up from their seats, one after another. The auditorium watches. Teachers film it on their phones. No one screams, no one fights. The 6 walk toward the exit, in silence, under the gaze of 200 people, under the cameras of 10 phones. Ethan stands on stage and watches them leave. Then he says one last thing, this time in English, and Emily translates aloud from the crowd, into Korean, loud and clear. He says this is a school, not a territory, not a business, not a ring. A school, a place where children learn. And if anyone thinks they can come here and lay a hand on these children, let them know that their names will also be made known. Silence. Then applause. Not everyone, not right away, but applause. Ethan steps down from the stage. He walks through the hall. Yuna is at the exit. She nods, once. Ethan leaves. He walks back to the counter, puts on an apron, grills sausages. His hands are shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline. Hyun is standing nearby.
Silently. She takes the second spatula and starts flipping the sausages next to him. She doesn't say a word. She just stands there. Ethan doesn't look at her, but his hands stop shaking. After the festival, everything changes. A video of Ethan's performance ends up in the school chat and spreads beyond Taeyong. Someone posts it on the open internet. 40,000 views in a day. The comments are split down the middle. Some write that the guy is a hero. Others write that a foreigner has no right to publicly accuse Koreans. Both sides are wrong, but both sides are making a fuss. And this commotion wakes up people who would rather sleep. The principal summons Ethan the next morning. There is more than one lawyer in the office. 2. And a representative from the district education office. A man in a gray suit with a folder. He says that publicly accusing students without evidence violates the law protecting the honor and dignity of minors. He says the parents of the 6 named students are preparing a class action lawsuit. He says Ethan could face not just expulsion, but deportation. Ethan stands in front of the desk and listens. He doesn't sit down. No one offers him a seat. When the man in gray finishes, Ethan speaks up. I need to make a call. He steps out into the hallway. He calls Sora. Sora picks up on the second ring. Ethan describes the situation. Sora is silent for 3 seconds. Then she says, "Don't sign anything. Don't say another word. I'll be there in 10 minutes." 7 minutes later, Sora walks into the principal's office, without knocking. She's holding a folder. She bows to the principal and introduces herself. She says she's representing Park Ihan as a student representative in accordance with Section 42 of the Terion School Charter, which allows any high school student to act as a representative in disciplinary proceedings. The principal opens his mouth, closes it. The lawyers exchange glances. The man in gray looks at his folder. Paragraph 42 exists. No one has ever used it. Sora found it. Sora sits down next to Ethan, opens her folder, speaks calmly. A public statement made at an open school event does not constitute an accusation in the legal sense. An accusation is a term of criminal law. Park Ihwan expressed an evaluative judgment. Evaluative judgments are protected by Article 21 of the Constitution of the Republic of Korea, freedom of speech. Furthermore, if the parents of the 6 named students file a lawsuit to protect their honor and dignity, they will have to prove that Park Ihwan's statements are false. And if the statements turn out to be true, the lawsuit will be dismissed, and a countercharge under Article 305 will be filed automatically. Silence. Han Ji-soo Sr.'s lawyer looks at Sora, a 17-year-old high school student who has just quoted the Constitution and the criminal code without a single stumble. The man in gray closes his folder.
He says he will review the situation further. He stands up and leaves. The lawyers follow him out. The principal remains. He looks at Ethan and Sora. He says, "You may go." They leave. In the hallway, Ethan says, "Paragraph 42. Sora says, "I read the charter during the first week. All of it. 112 pages. Paragraph 42 was on page 78. Ethan looks at her and smiles for the first time in a long while. Not broadly, just the corner of his mouth. Sora doesn't smile back. She says, "Don't let your guard down." They'll be back. She's right. They'll be back in 3 days. But not through the lawyers. Through Min-hyuk. Wednesday, last class, PE. Ethan is at the stadium, running, 3 laps. He runs and notices 4 people standing by the stadium gate. Not students. Older, different clothes, different posture. Ethan recognizes one of them. The big guy with the injured elbow. The same one from the basement. The same one from the meeting at Min-hyuk's. The same one he called out at the festival. The 4 of them stand and watch. They don't enter the grounds. They stand behind the fence, just watching. A message. We know where you are. We're coming. Ethan finishes his lap and walks up to the fence. He stands 2 meters away from the big guy, looks him in the eye. The big guy speaks. "You called out my name in front of the whole school." Ethan is silent. The big guy says, "I don't give a damn about school. I don't give a damn about chat rooms. I don't give a damn about your girls. But you called my name. And you'll pay for that. Not here, not now, but you'll pay." Ethan says, "I know." The big guy blinks.
He expected fear, or anger, or a threat in return. He got 2 words. I know. Big Spitz turns around. The 4 of them walk away. Ethan stands by the fence and watches them go. His heart beats steadily. His hands are calm. He isn't afraid. Not because he's brave. Because 6 years of basement fights on the South Side taught him one thing.
You shouldn't fear those who threaten you. You should fear those who come in silence. These 4 came and talked. That means they aren't ready yet. When they're ready, they'll come quietly. After school, Ethan calls Yuna. He tells her about the 4 guys by the fence. Yuna says, "They've been watching you for 2 days now. My girls noticed. A black car. It parks across the street from the school. I wrote down the license plate," Ethan says. "Pass the plate number on to Sora," Yuna says. "I already did. Sora ran it through Minsu's brother's database. The car is registered to Han Ji-soo Sr.'s company." Ethan closes his eyes. Han Sr. Again. Everything leads back to one person. Every thread, every clue, every threat. That evening, Ethan comes home. Grandma is in the kitchen. He sits down and says, "Grandma, I need to know about my father." "Not tomorrow, now." Grandma puts the teapot on the table. She sits down across from him. She is silent for a long time. Then she speaks. "Your father was a prosecutor's investigator." Ethan freezes. Grandma continues. "He was assigned to a case involving teenage gangs in Taryongdong 12 years ago. The very same gangs that have now become what you call the pyramid. He gathered evidence, a lot of it, enough to put people away. But the case was closed, he was transferred, and 3 months later, he died." Ethan says, "An accident?" Grandma shakes her head. "Not an accident." Ethan feels something shifting inside him. Not breaking, shifting, like a tectonic plate, slowly and inevitably. Grandma says, "They killed him. They staged an accident on the bridge over the Khan. The car fell into the river. They found the body a day later. The case was closed as an accident. No one investigated." Ethan sits motionless, hands on the table. He doesn't clench his fists, doesn't stand up, doesn't scream, just sits there. Grandma says, "I know who did it." Ethan looks up. Grandma says, "That boy's father, Han Ji-soo Sr." Silence. A long one.
The teapot cools on the table. Ethan says, "Why did you keep quiet?" Grandma says. "Because I had no proof, just the words of your father's former colleague, Prosecutor Cho. He was suspended after your father's death. He called me once. He said he knew the truth. He said he couldn't prove it. He said that if I started talking, I'd be next. And you." Ethan is silent. Grandmother speaks. "I kept quiet for 12 years, so you could grow up, so your mother could survive, so we could all survive." She looks up. There are no tears in them. There are 12 years of silence in them. She says, "But you're already here. You're already at this school. You've already named names. And you won't stop now. I can see that. So take the box." She stands up, goes into her room, returns with a cardboard box. That very one, with Park written on the lid. She sets it in front of Ethan. She says, "These are your father's things. Everything he collected. Everything he didn't have time to pass on. Open it." Ethan looks at the box. He places his hands on the lid. The cardboard is old and soft. 12 years in Grandma's closet. He opens it. Inside are folders, papers, photographs, a notebook, a pen. No, there's no pen. He gave the pen to Mir. He takes the first folder, opens it. He reads the first page. His father's handwriting. Neat. Small. In Korean. Ethan doesn't understand half the words, but he sees one name, Han, and next to it, a date, and next to the date, a word he understands without translation. Murder. Ethan doesn't sleep all night. He sits on the floor of his father's room and goes through the box. Folders. 7 of them. Each one handwritten. His father's handwriting. Neat and small. Ethan reads slowly. He doesn't understand half the words. He takes out his phone and translates one sentence at a time. By 3 in the morning, he gets the big picture. 12 years ago, in Dawn, a network of teenage gangs was operating. Not 5 kings like today. Back then, there were 8 of them. They controlled not only the schools, but also street vending near the subway. They protected the small vendors. They collected money from every stall. The police knew. The police got their cut. Etan's father had been assigned to the case from the Central Prosecutor's Office. A young investigator, 32 years old, a man of principle. In 4 months, he gathered evidence of a connection between the gangs and one specific businessman who financed the entire system. Han Jisoo Sr. He was 40 at the time, owner of 3 construction companies, a semi-legal business. Officially, he built residential complexes. Unofficially, he laundered money through teenage networks. Ethan's father found bank transfers. He found witnesses. He found an accountant who was willing to testify. He wrote a 40-page report. The report is in folder number 4. Ethan holds it in his hands and feels the weight of those pages. Not physical, something else. The report never made it to court. A week before the scheduled hearing, the case was closed. The official reason? Insufficient evidence. The real reason? A call from above. My father didn't write down who exactly called, but on the last page of his notebook, there's a single line. They know. I need to leave. 3 months later, he died. The Han River Bridge. The car crashed through the guardrail, fell into the water. His body was found a day later. The autopsy. An accident. A slippery road. Case closed. Ethan closes the last folder. He puts it on the floor. He sits in silence. Outside the window, Seoul is waking up. The first buses, the first cars. A dog barks somewhere. He looks at his hands, the same hands as his father's, the same knuckles, the same size. His father didn't fight with his fists. His father fought with paper, reports, testimonies, and he lost because he was alone. Ethan isn't alone. In the morning, he calls Sora. He says, I need to meet with Prosecutor Che,
the one who worked with my father. Sora is silent. Then she says, How do you know about Prosecutor Cho? Ethan says, Grandma told me. Sora says, I'll find him. Give me 2 days. 2 days. Ethan goes to school, sits in class, grills sausages in the cafeteria because after the festival, the class decided to keep the hot dog stand permanently. His classmates have gotten used to him. Some even say hello in the mornings. Not everyone, but some. In the hallway, they no longer call him a half-breed. They call him by his name, Ethan, or Park, or sometimes Chicago. He doesn't care. On the second day, Sora comes with an address. Prosecutor Cho Sung-hwan, 62 years old, retired. He lives in a small apartment in Mapo-gu, alone. His wife left 10 years ago. His children are in America. After his suspension, he didn't return to the prosecutor's office. He worked as a legal advisor at a small firm. Then he left. Then he left again. Now he's nowhere. Ethan goes to see him after school. Alone. Without Sora. Without Yuna. Without anyone. This is his father's business. He has to do it himself. The apartment is on the 5th floor with no elevator. The door is old. The doorbell doesn't work. Ethan knocks. For a long time. The door opens. An old man, thin, gray-haired. His eyes are red from insomnia or something else. He's wearing a wrinkled shirt and sweatpants. He looks at Ethan. He's silent. Ethan speaks. My name is Park Ihan. My father is Park Jong-hyun. The old man grabs the doorframe. His hand is shaking. He looks at Ethan and doesn't see him. He sees someone else. Then he says hoarsely, "Come in." The apartment is small. 1 room, a kitchen, a bathroom. There's a bottle of soju on the table, half empty, a glass next to it. A photograph on the wall. 2 men in prosecutors' uniforms, one young, one older. Ethan's father and Che Song-hwan, 12 years ago. Che sits down on a chair. Ethan sits across from him. Che says, "You look like him." Ethan says, "I know."
Everyone says so, Cho says.
Not the face, the hands. He used to sit just like that too, upright, hands on his knees, as if ready to stand up at any second. Ethan is silent. He waits. Cho pours himself some soju. His hand trembles. He drinks. He says, "I know why you're here. Your grandmother kept a box." Ethan nods. Joe says, "I wanted to close this case 12 years ago. I had evidence. Your father had evidence. Together we could have put Han away for 20 years. But we were stopped. Not by Han. By the system. People higher up than Han who found it convenient to have Han working. The police, officials, lawmakers. A chain." Ethan says, "And now?" Cho looks at him for a long time. He says, "Now I'm an old man drinking alone in an empty apartment. What can I do now?" Ethan takes folder number 4 out of his backpack, his father's report. He puts it on the table. He says, "You know people in the prosecutor's office who haven't sold out. At least one." Cho Chue looks at the report. He touches the pages. His fingers tremble. He says, "I know one. Young, principled, just like your father was." Ethan says, "Call him." Chue looks up. Something changes in his eyes. Not immediately, slowly, as if a light bulb has turned on in a dark room. He picks up the phone, an old push-button model. He dials the number. He waits. Ringing. Answer. Chue speaks. "This is Chue Sung-hwan." "Yes, the one. I need to meet you." "Yes, urgently." "Yes." He hangs up. He looks at Ethan. He says, "Tomorrow at 10, Central District Prosecutor's Office." Ethan stands up. He says, "Thank you." Chue says, "Don't thank me. I should have done this 12 years ago." Ethan leaves the apartment. He walks down the stairs. It's dark outside. He stands by the entrance and looks up at the sky. There are no stars. Seoul is too bright for stars. He takes out his phone and calls his mother. She picks up on the first ring. She says, "Son, it's late. Where are you?" Ethan says, "Mom, I know about Dad." His mother is silent for a long time. Ethan hears her breathing. Then she says, "Grandma told me." Ethan says, "Yeah." His mother says, "I wanted to tell you myself when you were older." Ethan says, "I'm 17. Dad was 32 when he did it. I'm older than you think." His mother is silent again. Then she says very quietly, "What are you going to do?" Ethan says, "Finish what he started." His mother says, "Not like him. Please, not like him." Ethan says, "Not like him. He didn't have a team. I do." Mother cries, quietly. Ethan stands on Mafogu Street and listens to his mother crying in a hospital room in Seoul. He doesn't tell her not to cry. He knows that some tears are necessary. A minute later, she says, Fight, son. Just come back. Ethan nods, though she can't see him. He says, I'll be back. He hangs up. He walks to the bus stop. He rides home. Grandma isn't asleep. She's waiting in the kitchen. Ethan walks in and says, I found Prosecutor Che.
Tomorrow he's meeting with someone from the Central Prosecutor's office. Grandma nods. She isn't surprised, as if she knew this day would come. She says, Eat. Ethan sits down. He eats rice, kimchi stew. For 12 years, Grandma kept the box and waited. Now there's no need to wait. The prosecutor's office begins to work quietly. The young investigator Cho found is named Kang Do-yeon, 31 years old. A woman? Ethan didn't expect that. He goes to meet Cho in an office on the 7th floor of the prosecutor's office building and sees a woman in a business suit with a short haircut and eyes that don't blink when they look at you. Cho introduces Ethan. Kang Do-yeon looks at him. She says, You're a high school student. Ethan says, Yes. Kang says, You're 17. Ethan says, Yes. Kang says, And you want to reopen a 12-year-old case involving the murder of a prosecutor's investigator. Ethan places folder number 4 on the table, his father's report. Next to it, he places his phone with photos of the basement. Next to that, he places a copy of Sora's file. 12 cases. Mire's testimony. Min-soo's testimony. The license plate number of the car registered to Han Sr.'s company. Information about payments to the director. Kang Do-yeon looks at the table, then at Ethan, then at Che. He says, Who gathered all this? Ethan says, Us. Kang says, Who are we? Ethan lists them. Not names. Roles. Lawyer. Security team leader. Inside informant. Translator. Witness. And me. Kang leans back in his chair. He says, School children. Che says, I'm involved too. Kang looks at him. She says, You're retired. Che says, I've been retired for 12 years because I was suspended over this case. I'm ready to testify. Kang is silent. She picks up the folder. She reads for a long time. 15 minutes. No one speaks. She closes the folder. She says, There's enough here to start an investigation. Not for an arrest, not for a trial, for an investigation. But the investigation will uncover enough. If everything written here is true, Ethan says. It's true, Kang says. I need time. I can't reopen a 12-year-old case without management's approval. And management might be the same as it was back then, Cho says. Not everyone. Senior Prosecutor Eam left 3 years ago. The new one is clean. For now. Kang nods. He says, I'll try. But I need a guarantee that your students won't cause any trouble while I'm working. No public appearances, no accusations, no fights. Silence, Ethan says. Deal. They leave the prosecutor's office. Out on the street, Cho lights a cigarette. His hands are shaking. He says, Your father would be proud. Ethan is silent, because he doesn't know what to say. He doesn't remember his father well enough to know what he would be proud of. He only remembers his hands. Big, warm, and the smell of coffee. He heads to school. He's late for second period. The teacher doesn't say a word.
Ethan is a quiet student who doesn't cause trouble in class. At least, not in class. During break, he gathers the team, not on the roof, in the cafeteria, at a regular table. 6 people. Ethan, Yuna, Sora, Hyen, Emily. Mira is drawing 2 tables away but is listening. Ethan speaks quietly. The prosecutor's office has started its investigation. We need to keep quiet, completely. No action, no public statements. Hyen is gathering information, but more cautiously. Yuna is holding the line, but without confrontation. Sora is working with a lawyer, but quietly. Emily is waiting. Everyone nods. Yuna speaks. And Min-hyuk? Ethan says. Min-hyuk will put pressure on us, that's for sure. But we need to hold out, no matter how much pressure he puts on us. Yuna says. My girls will hold out. The question is whether you will. Ethan looks at her. She looks at him. Between them is that conversation that takes place without words. She knows he's tired. 2 hours of sleep, night work, school. His father's case. 6 years of blows from strangers that live in his body. She sees it because she lives the same way. 4 years without a mother, a younger sister. 23 girls who need protecting. A father who works 20 hours a day and doesn't notice that his daughter has grown up. They both carry someone else's burden, and they both know they can't stop. Ethan says, I'll make it. Yuna nods. A week of silence. Ethan goes to school, works at the market, eats grandma's rice, calls his mother every evening. His mother says the treatment is going well. Chemotherapy. It's hard, but she's managing. Her hair has started falling out. She laughs and says she's always wanted to try a short haircut. Ethan laughs with her. Then he hangs up and sits in the dark for 10 minutes. Then he gets up and goes to the market. In the second week of silence, Min-hyuk makes his move. Not against Ethan, against Mir. A message appears in the school chat from an anonymous account. A photo of Meyer entering a law firm building. Caption: The quiet girl from 1 to 4 is running to the lawyers. I wonder who she's going to testify against. Ethan finds out about this from Emily, who is monitoring the chat. Emily runs over to him during break. She shows him. Ethan looks at the photo. Meyer looks small in it, in a jacket, in glasses, walking through the door. The photo was taken from a distance, a telephoto lens. She was being followed. Ethan puts his phone on the table, slowly, carefully. His expression doesn't change, but Emily takes a step back. She sees something in his eyes she hasn't seen before. Not anger, coldness. Ethan speaks in an even voice. Find Yuna. Tell her Meyer needs protection. Around the clock, to school, at school, after school. Emily nods and leaves, quickly. An hour later, Meyer is accompanied by 4 of Yuna's girls. They don't explain why. They just walk beside her. Meyer looks at them, then at Ethan across the hallway. He nods. She nods back.
She keeps walking. Ethan calls Sora. He says, they know about Meyer and the lawyer. A photo in the chat. Sora is silent. Then she says, that means they have someone watching her. Not just a car, a person with a camera, a professional. Ethan says, yes. Sora says, I need to warn Kang Do-yeon. If they're following Meyer, they'll soon start following everyone. Ethan says, do it. Sora calls the prosecutor. Kang Do-yeon listens. He says, this speeds things up. If they're actively fighting back, it means they feel threatened. I'm filing a request for a search warrant for the gym basement in 3 days. Ethan says to Sora, 3 days. 3 days. Ethan counts the clock. The first of 3 days. Morning. Ethan goes to school. Everything as usual. Uniform, backpack, barley tea and a thermos. At the gate, Meyer is with 4 of Yuna's girls. They nod to each other, go their separate ways. First class, second, third. During the 4th class, Ethan's phone vibrates. A message from Hyun. 1 word. Be careful. Ethan puts his phone away. He looks out the window. A black car is parked in the courtyard. That very one. The same license plate. They aren't hiding. They're standing out in the open. A message. After class, Ethan heads for the exit. They're waiting for him at the gate. Not 4, 8. the big guy from the basement, the guy from the basement, and 6 strangers, all over 20, all in black. They're standing in a semicircle at the gate, not on school grounds, on the sidewalk. Legal. Yuna comes out after Ethan. Behind her are her 12 girls. They stand behind Ethan, not beside him, behind him, his back, just as she promised on the roof. The big guy speaks. "Come out. Let's talk." Ethan says, "Talk here." The big guy says, "Not here. Over there." He nods toward the alley behind the school fence. Ethan doesn't move. He looks at the 8 of them. He reads them. The 2 on the ends are nervous, hands in their pockets. One of them is holding something. Not a knife. Short. Metal. Brass knuckles. The 3 in the center are calm. They've beaten people. Many times. Not school kids. Adults. Real ones. The big guy in front. A pro. Elbow injury. Left-handed. And 2 more on either side. Fast. Light on their feet. Coordinated. Their job isn't to hit, but to cut off the escape routes. Ethan sees it all in 2 seconds. 8 against 1. He can handle 4, maybe 5, but not 8. Not with brass knuckles. Not with a professional. He stands and says nothing. Yuna stands behind him and says nothing. 12 girls stand and say nothing. Sora is coming from the other side of the courtyard. Hyun is behind her. Emily is behind Hyun. They stand next to Yuna. Ethan feels them behind him. He doesn't turn around. The big guy speaks. "You're hiding behind skirts. That's funny." Ethan doesn't answer. The big guy takes a step forward. Ethan takes a step forward. They stand 2 meters apart. Ethan speaks quietly, so only the big guy can hear. In 2 days, the prosecutor's office will come to the gym basement with a warrant. They'll find the mattress. They'll find the fingerprints. Yours. If you leave now, you have 2 days to disappear. If you stay, in a week, you'll be sitting in a cell. I don't care which you choose. Krupny looks at him. His face is stony. Then something flashes in his eyes. Not fear. Calculation. He turns around. He tells his men, "Let's go." 8 people get into 2 cars. They drive away. Yuna approaches Ethan. She asks, "What did you tell him?" Ethan says, "The truth." That evening, Ethan calls Kang Do-yeon. He tells him that 8 men were waiting for him at the school. Kang is silent. Then he says, "I'll expedite the warrant tomorrow." Day 2 of 3. Morning. Quiet. Too quiet. No cars at the school. Min Hyuk's men aren't visible in the hallways. The 3rd floor of the West Wing is empty. Min Hyuk didn't show up. Ethan senses it like the smell before a storm, a silence that weighs heavily.
During recess, Hyen runs up to him, out of breath. She says, "Her father received a call from Han Sr. Han Sr. said there will be a big meeting tonight. All the tenants, all the partners, everyone connected to his business in Taryongdong. Han Sr. wants to show that everything is under control, that the problems at the school have been resolved." Hyun says, "My father is nervous. He doesn't understand what's going on, but he senses something big." Ethan thinks, Han Sr. is gathering people. That means he senses a threat too. People with money don't gather partners when everything is going well. They gather when they need to show strength, or when they're afraid that power is slipping away. Ethan calls Kang Do-yeon. He mentions the meeting. Kang says, "This is useful. If everyone gathers in one place, it makes surveillance easier. I'll submit a wiretap request." "No, I won't have time, but I'll set up surveillance." Day 3, morning. Ethan wakes up to a call. Kang Do-yeon.
He says, "The warrant's been issued. The basement search is today at 2 in the afternoon, during class. Minimum students, maximum silence. Don't come to school." Ethan says, "I'll come." Kang says, "Don't come." Ethan says, "I'll come, but I'll be in class, not in the basement." Kang is silent. Then he says, "Fine, 2 o'clock in the afternoon." Ethan is sitting in his literature class. Through the window, he sees 3 cars pulling up to the back door of the gym. No flashing lights, no sirens. Quiet. People in plain clothes get out of the cars. Kang Do-yeon is among them. She's in a suit, a folder in her hands. Behind her are 2 men with cameras, forensic investigators. They enter through the back door. They pick the lock in a minute. Ethan sits in class and looks out the window. Ha-in is sitting next to him. She's looking too. Doesn't say a word. Under the desk, she takes his hand, squeezes it once, squeezes it. Let's go. Ethan doesn't turn around. An hour later, Kang Do-yeon calls. Ethan steps out of the classroom into the hallway. He answers. Kang speaks. "We found everything. The mattress, fingerprints, biological traces, a camera that someone set up in the corner of the basement. Hidden. It was recording. We took the storage device. It has 4 months' worth of footage." Ethan leans against the wall. A camera. There was a camera in the basement. Someone was filming what was happening. He didn't know. Meyer didn't know. Kang says, "That's enough. I'm filing for arrest warrants for the 2 from the basement and the one who gave the key, Min-hyuk." Ethan says, "Min-hyuk is a minor." Kang says, "I know, but aiding and abetting a crime against a minor is covered under Article 32 in conjunction with Article 305. He'll go to a juvenile detention center, not to prison, but he'll go." Ethan says, "What about Han Ji-soo Sr.?" Kang is silent. Then he says, "Not yet. I need more for Han, your father's, Che's testimony." The connection between Han and those who closed the case 12 years ago. "It'll take time," Ethan says. "How long?" Kang asks. "Months. Maybe 6 months, maybe a year." Ethan closes his eyes. A year. A whole year. "But my father waited his whole life and never got it. A year is nothing," he says. "Okay, I'll wait." That evening, the police arrive at Taeryong High School. 3 cars, 6 officers in uniform. They go up to the 3rd floor of the West Wing. Min-hyuk is sitting at his desk, alone, no entourage, as if he'd been waiting. A police officer speaks. "Jo Min-hyuk, you need to come with us." Min-hyuk stands up, slowly, looks out the window, then at the police officer. He doesn't resist, he doesn't scream, he doesn't run, he just walks. They lead him down the hallway, past the classrooms. Students stand in the doorways and watch. Silence, absolute. Min-hyuk walks steadily, his back is straight, his face is blank. At the exit, he stops for a second, turns his head. Looks at Ethan, who is standing by the wall of the hallway. Their eyes meet. Min-hyuk isn't angry. He doesn't hate him. He just looks at him, like a man who knew this would happen and was waiting for it to. Then he walks out. The doors close. Ethan stands in the hallway. Yuna is next to him. Sora is next to him. Ha-in is next to him, next to Emily. 10 meters away, Mireille. She stands holding a fountain pen, tightly, with both hands. Ethan walks past her, stops, speaks quietly. "You did it." Mireille lifts her head, looks at him, and for the first time in months, speaks aloud. One word, quietly, almost a whisper. "Thank you." Ethan nods. He walks toward the exit. 5 girls follow him, and a silence that, for the first time in 2 months, doesn't weigh down, but holds. After Min-hyuk's arrest, the pyramid falls apart within a week. Taeho, the king of the North Wing, who had long since ceased to act officially,
declares that he is no longer participating. He leaves quietly.
His crew scatters to their classrooms and pretends nothing happened. The king of the East Wing, whom Yuna had been holding on to, surrenders his position without a fight. His territory is now the girls' territory. Yuna doesn't celebrate. She just removes the tags from the walls. The scratches are painted over. The hallways brighten up. The two remaining kings of the South and Central Wings go to Ethan. Separately, not together. The southern one, Park Dong-hyun, the one Yuna called the wobbly one. He's 18. He'll graduate in 3 months. He sits across from Ethan in the cafeteria and says, "I don't want to go to prison. I want to go to college. Tell me what to do." Ethan says, "Go to Sora. Tell her everything you know about Han Ji-soo, about the older one, not the younger one, the older one, who paid him, who worked for him, how the money flowed." Dong-hyun turns pale. He says, "If I tell her, I'm finished." Ethan says, "If you don't tell her, you're finished too. Just later." Dong-hyun sits for a minute. Then he stands up. He goes to Sora. 2 days later, Sora passes Dong-hyun's testimony to Prosecutor Kang. 15 pages. Diagrams, names, amounts. The money trails from street vendors, through schoolyard kingpins, through Han Sr.'s accountants, to offshore accounts. Kang Do-yeon reads it and calls Ethan. He says, "This is enough. Together with your father's report and Che's testimony, I'm submitting the case to the Attorney General for review." Meanwhile, Emily is doing her part. She translates the key materials into English and sends them to her former classmate in Los Adio. The classmate's mother works as an editor at an international news agency. 4 days later, an article appears on the English-language internet. Not about Taedong School, about a system of teenage racketeering in the Seoul suburbs. No names, no specific accusations, just the big picture. But detailed enough for the Korean media to pick up on it. One after another, 3 Korean channels air reports on school violence at Taeryong-dong. Lawmakers who had been promising crackdowns for a year began demanding action. The Ministry of Education orders an investigation. The principal of Taeryong School resigns the day after investigators discover that the cameras in the West Wing had been turned off for 7 months. He leaves quietly. He collects his belongings from his office on Saturday when the school is empty. No one sees him off. Han Ji-soo Jr. watches all of this in silence. He doesn't run away. He doesn't hide. He goes to school every day. He sits in class. He reads books in the library. His father hasn't been arrested yet, but he knows it's only a matter of time. Ethan runs into him in the hallway. By chance, or perhaps not. Ji-soo stops. He looks at Ethan. He speaks. "You know the truth. About my father. And about yours." Ethan says. "Yes." Ji-soo is silent. Then he says, "I didn't know. I swear. I didn't know that my father—" He doesn't finish. Ethan looks at him. There is no fear in Ji-soo's eyes, no anger, just confusion. For the first time, this perfect, flawless boy with accent-free English and a watch worth half a year's salary doesn't know what to do. Ethan says, "You can choose." Ji-soo says, "Between what and what?" Ethan says, "Between who your father made you and who you can be on your own." Ji-soo looks at him for a long time. Then he turns and walks away. Ethan doesn't know what Ji-soo will choose. For now. A week later, Han Ji-soo Sr. is summoned for questioning at the Central Prosecutor's office. They don't arrest him, they just summon him. He arrives in a black Mercedes with 3 lawyers. The questioning lasts 4 hours. Kang Do-yeon asks the questions. Han Sr. answers through his lawyers. He denies everything. Bank transfers, connections to gangs, the murder of investigator Park. Everything. Kang Do-yeon expected this. She presents the basement security camera footage, Dong-hyun's testimony, Mi-rae's testimony, Min-soo's testimony, Father Itan's report, Chae Sung-hwan's testimony, and finally, a recording of a phone conversation, Han Sr. and the school principal, 3 months ago. The principal asks for money. Han Sr. tells him to keep the cameras turned off. The principal made this recording himself before he resigned, a safety net in case he was dragged down with them. Sora found out about this through the principal's secretary, who turned out to be the aunt of one of the girls, Yuna. It's a small world. Taerongdong. Everyone knows everyone else. Han Sr. listens to the recording. His expression doesn't change. The lawyers exchange glances. One of them asks for a recess. Kang Do-yeon smiles for the first time during the entire interrogation. 24 hours later, Han Ji-soo is arrested. In the morning, at the gate of his house. 3 cars, 8 police officers, handcuffs. Media cameras are already there. Someone tipped them off. Maybe Kang, maybe someone else.
Han Sr. walks to the car past the cameras. His face is stony. He doesn't look back. He gets in. The door closes. The car drives away. At school, Tae-ryung finds out about it an hour later. The school chat explodes. Thousands of messages. No one is studying. Everyone is reading the news. Mi-rae sits in class and draws. On the page, a house, small, with a roof, with smoke coming from the chimney. A tree nearby, 6 figures under the tree, close together. Together. She draws calmly. Ethan's father's pen glides smoothly across the paper. Meanwhile, Ethan is sitting on the school roof, alone, looking at Seoul, the wind, the city below, cars, people, life. He takes out his phone and calls his mother. She answers on the first ring. Ethan speaks. "Mom, they arrested the man who killed Dad." His mother is silent. 20 seconds. 30. Ethan hears her crying, not quietly, out loud, for the first time in 12 years. He sits on the roof and listens, doesn't tell her not to cry, doesn't comfort her, just listens. A minute later, she says through her tears, "Tell Grandma." Ethan says, "I will." He hangs up. He climbs down from the roof. He walks home. Grandma is in the kitchen. She's cutting kimchi. Ethan sits down across from her. He says, "Grandma, Han Ji-soo Sr. has been arrested this morning." Grandma puts down the knife. She looks at her grandson. Her face doesn't change. She isn't crying. She isn't smiling. She isn't sighing. She's just looking. Then she picks up the knife and continues cutting the kimchi. Her hands aren't shaking anymore. For the first time in 12 years, Ethan sits and watches her hands, steady, calm. He realizes that this is her tears. Grandma is crying because she has stopped trembling. The trial begins in 4 months. Han Ji-soo Sr. faces 12 charges: organizing juvenile crime, financing racketeering, bribery of public officials, destruction of evidence, and most importantly, the contract killing of prosecutor Park Jung-hyun 12 years ago. The trial lasts 3 weeks. Kang Do-young personally leads the prosecution. Chae Sung-hwan testifies. The old man enters the courtroom in a suit he bought specifically for the occasion. His hands do not tremble. His voice is steady. He speaks for 2 hours. He tells everything, from the very beginning. The judge listens without interrupting. Han Sr.'s lawyers try to discredit him. A drinking pensioner, a disgruntled former employee, personal revenge, Kang Do-yun presents Ethan's father's report. 40 pages, each one signed, each one dated. The dead man's handwriting speaks louder from the paper than the living lawyer's. Park Dong-hyun takes the stand. He's nervous, his hands are sweaty, but he speaks. He names amounts, names, dates, schemes. Han Sr.'s lawyers cannot refute it. The numbers add up. Meyer testifies, in writing, through a lawyer. She does not enter the courtroom. She cannot.
The lawyer reads her text aloud. 4 pages written in fountain pen. The courtroom is silent. The judge takes off his glasses and wipes them for a long time. Ethan is sitting in the courtroom, in the back row, next to his grandmother, next to his mother. His mother came from the hospital. She's lost weight. Pale. Wearing a wig because chemotherapy took her hair. But she is here, holding Ethan's hand. Tightly. Just like when he was 6 and his father had just died, and his mother held his hand at the Chicago airport as they flew out of Korea. The circle is complete. 12 years later, and she's holding his hand again. Only now he's not a little boy, and they're not running away. They're sitting and waiting. In the 3rd week of the trial, Han Ji-soo Jr. enters the courtroom, not as a witness, as a member of the public. He sits in the middle row, alone. He listens to the testimony. He hears his last name spoken alongside the word murder. He listens and doesn't leave. After the hearing, he waits for Ethan on the street. Outside the courthouse, Ethan comes out with his mother and grandmother. He sees Ji-soo. His mother and grandmother walk toward the car. Ethan approaches Ji-soo. They stand facing each other, like in a school hallway, like in the library, like at the stadium gates. Only now, there are no school rules or neighborhood hierarchies between them. Between them lie 12 years and one man's death. Ji-soo speaks. I filed a report with the police against my father this morning under the charge of concealing evidence and obstruction of justice. Ethan is silent. Ji-soo continues. This isn't atonement, I know, but it's a choice. You said I could choose. I've chosen. Ethan says, what are you going to do? Ji-soo says, I don't know. For the first time in my life, I don't know. And for the first time in my life, that's okay. Ethan holds out his hand. Ji-soo looks at it, then shakes it. Their handshake lasts 2 seconds. Then they go their separate ways. The court delivers its verdict 4 days later. Han Ji-soo Sr., guilty on all 12 counts. 22 years. No parole for the first 10 years. The courtroom buzzes, cameras click, journalists take notes. Ethan sits in the back row and doesn't move. His grandmother is beside him. His mother is next to him. His grandmother takes his hand, his left. His mother takes his right. He sits between them and watches as Han Sr. is led out of the courtroom. An old man in a suit, 60 years old, his face stony until the very last second. Then the doors close and he is gone. Ethan closes his eyes. He thinks of his father, of how his father sat at the table and wrote the report with the very same pen that Ethan gave to Mireille. The same pen Mireille used to write her testimony. One pen, 2 generations, one truth. A week after the trial, Ethan is standing at Incheon Airport. His mother is beside him. 2 suitcases, tickets to Chicago. His mother has finished her treatment. The tumor isn't growing. Remission. The doctor said to come in for a checkup every 6 months. His mother wants to go home, to Chicago, to her apartment, to her job. Ethan agreed, without argument, just like a year ago when he agreed to go to Seoul. His grandmother came to the airport to see him off. She stands small and straight. Her gray hair is pulled back in a bun. Her hands are folded in front of her. They don't tremble. She hugs Ethan, tightly, as if she wants to remember his size. Then she steps back and says, "Come back." Ethan nods. They're waiting for him at the boarding gate. Yuna is standing by the wall. Dahi is next to her. Hyun is by the pillar. She pretends to be checking her phone, but her eyes are red. Emily is by the window. She waves. She smiles, but her chin is trembling. Sora stands apart, upright as always, a folder in her hands. Of course, a folder. She walks up to Ethan and holds it out. She says, "Here are the contacts for the University of Chicago Law Clinic, the program for minors. Free consultations, in case you need it." Ethan takes the folder. He says, "Thanks, Sora." She nods. She walks away. Then she turns around and says, "I'm applying to law school, Seoul National University. I'm going to be a prosecutor." Ethan says, "I know." She smiles for the first time. Mire is last. She's standing 5 steps away. Not 10, not 8, 5. The distance has halved in a year. A rolled-up sheet of paper in her hands. She approaches Ethan. She holds it out. He unrolls it. The first page of a manga, drawn with a fountain pen. A boy stands at the school gate, chewing on an egg. His uniform is tight across his shoulders, a thermos in his pocket. A caption at the bottom. "The boy who doesn't know how to hit with half his strength." Ethan looks at the drawing, then at Mire. She speaks, out loud, quietly, but out loud. "I'll finish drawing it while you're gone." Ethan folds the sheet and puts it in his pocket. He nods. Hyun approaches. He says, "You'll come back," Ethan says. "Yes," Hyun says. "How do you know?" Ethan says. "Because Grandma's kimchi jjigae is here, and the school, and you guys." Hyun blinks rapidly. She turns away. Emily approaches. She speaks in English. "Don't eat Chicago-style pizza. It's not pizza," Ethan says. "You're telling me," a guy from Los Angeles. Emily laughs. She hugs him quickly and tightly. "Let's go," walks away. Yuna approaches last. Dahi is nearby. Dahi says, "I'm going to miss your hot dogs." Yuna says, "Dahi?" Dahi says, "What?" Yuna says, "Shut up." Dahi puffs out her cheeks. Yuna looks at Ethan. He looks at her. That wordless conversation they've been having since they first met on the roof. 2 people carrying someone else's weight and understanding each other without a sound. Yuna says, "A year." Ethan says, "A year." Yuna nods. She turns around. She walks away. Dahi runs after her. At the door, she turns around and shouts, "You're crying over an egg again." Ethan laughs. Mother stands nearby and looks at all these girls who have come to see her son off. At Yuna, who walks away without looking back. At Ha-in, who stands by the column and wipes her eyes. At Mire, who is holding a fountain pen with both hands. At Sora, with her folder. At Emily, who is waving from the window. At Dahi, who is shouting about the egg. Mother speaks softly. "Son, you'll definitely come back," Ethan says. "Yes, Mom, in a year." They board the plane. Ethan sits by the window. The plane taxis onto the runway. Through the glass, he sees Seoul, the city that was foreign to him a year ago, the city where he found his father. Lost and found again. The city where his grandmother kept a box of truth for 12 years. The city where a girl who had stopped speaking wrote 4 pages with a dead man's fountain pen and regained her voice. The plane takes off. Seoul grows smaller. The Han River glistens in the sun. That very bridge. Ethan looks at it. Then he closes his eyes. In his pocket, the first page of the manga. A boy at the school gate. An egg. A thermos. A uniform that's tight across the shoulders. Chapter 1. His mother is falling asleep beside him. For the first time in a year, her face is calm. Not pale, not tense. Calm. Ethan takes out his phone. One message from his grandmother. 2 words. Eat rice. He smiles. He puts his phone away. He closes his eyes. In 12 hours, Chicago. In a year, Seoul. University lies ahead. Life lies ahead. Behind him lies Terryon School, and the hallways, and the rooftops, and the basements, and the 5 kings, and the 1 pyramid that stood until the guy who doesn't know how to punch with half his strength showed up. He's no hero. He's a catalyst. He's the reason 5 girls did for the first time what they'd wanted to do for a long time. Yuna didn't just protect her own. Sora became a prosecutor before she even got into law school. Ha-In stopped being a showpiece. Mireille started speaking up. Emily stopped apologizing for who she is. And Dahi just stayed true to herself, loud and lively and real. The plane is climbing. Clouds cover Seoul. Ethan Park is flying home. But home is now in 2 places. In the apartment on the south side, where his mother will work as a nurse on 3 shifts, and in the small house in Taedongdong, where his grandmother cuts kimchi and doesn't tremble. The end.